Hello everyone. Until now we have studied the SQLite database where we store the data in table format with the columns, and then there are the rows, and in that format we have stored all these contacts and details. So we have learned that if we have to store some complex data and the very much big data, then we can use the SQLite database. But if we have to store really small data, that is the data in key value pair format, then for that simplistic data format we can use shared preferences. So basically, using shared preferences we can store the data in key value pair. Just like, let's say, uh, in our database, let's say if we user in our app, what happens, user logs in, then what our app will do, it will send that username and the password to the server, and then server will generate some token for that user and then send that token to back to the client side, that is in our app. So what we have to do, we need to store that token in the database, so that next time user opens our app, he don't have to log in again in our app. We will just auto login, and we will use that token to authenticate that user. So here we have to store just a simplistic format, that is just a single token. So we don't have to use the complex thing like SQLite. We can use the simplistic thing, that is shared preferences. So we can compare shared preferences like the cookies that we use in our browsers, that is local storage that we use in our browser to store the session cookies of user when that user logs into the website. So it's not like we cannot use the shared preference, that is key value pair, to store a complex data. We can use, for example, this data that we until now stored into the SQLite data. We will learn how we can store that data in a simplistic database, that is shared preferences. So what we will do, we will convert this complex data into simplistic data, that is we will convert all this data into the string format, and then we will store into the shared preference. Okay, so for that purpose, how now you have a question, you may have a question like how we will store this much data into the string format, right? Right. So basically we will convert this class object into the JSON format, and then we will store that JSON into the shared reference. So basically what will be the structure is, we have database, and then we have the data. So we will convert the data into the simplistic format, that is JSON. For that we will use one library, that is JSON, and then we will store this data into the database in string format. Okay, so it may not be clear these things, I am just using it for the first time, but anyways, you got the idea, right? So I'll just erase it. Okay, so I'll tell you first like how we will use the shared preference to store simplistic data, that is just a single string or single integer. So first thing what we have to do is just go and right click on your package, and then new, and then Java class, and we'll create one class, let's say preference manager, that will manage all the preferences. So we have this database data manager, that is preference manager. This class will manage the complete shared preferences things. Okay, you can relate it like this SQLite handler. Okay, so where we have extended SQLite open helper, and then we have done all the operations that we have to perform on the SQLite database in this class only. Okay, the same way we will do this in this preference manager. So but here we don't have to extend any other class, because preference manager is very simplistic thing, and we don't have to like extend anything and then implement things. We just have like two options, that is put and get. So I'll show you the how it really works. Okay, so this is our summary that I have created. To create a preference manager class, then create a public constructor to that class, and then take context as a parameter in the constructor. Then initialize these three things, that is context and then the preference, that is context.get shared preference. Here will be the name for your shared preference, and this will be the mode, which will be private most of the time. And then we will get an instance of editor, that is I like to tell you that this shared preferences is just like a normal text file which will be in your application where all the data will be stored. So it is nothing some different than just a text file. So here what happened, we will get the writable instance of that text file, and where we will add the data. Okay, and this will be the name of the file, you can consider. Okay, so let's create the public constructor for the preference manager. Then it will take the context, not the context. Then this dot context equals to context. I'll just alt enter it. Then the remaining things, these are the preferences and the editor. So I'll just add these things. Context dot get shared preferences will give some name to our shared preference. I'll give it my shared preference, let's say my SP, and we will create field, that is pref, which is instance of shared preference. We'll create a field editor. So we have preference and then editor. Now let's say we have to store some data, that is let's say we will store some string in our preference manager. So to store some string or any data in our preference manager, we have this option, that is editor.pushString and then editor.commit. So commit will write the data into that shared preference file, and then when we have to get some data, then we will just do preference.getString and the name of that what we say, the data where we stored it, let's say the key for the data where we stored it. Okay, and the default value, which will be, we can give any default value, let's say we can give null or 0, anything. Okay, so I'll just add here public void set data, and then we can pass some string there, my string, and what we have to do, editor dot put string. We can create one final name for that string, that is private final string my demo key, and we'll just give it the name that is key, and then my key, and then my string. Okay, and then when we have to get okay, so and then the last thing that we have to do is editor dot commit. Okay, and then next thing, let's say public string get data return, then preference dot get string, and here we will just pass my demo key, and then if that demo key is if that demo key is not stored in that shared preference, it will return default value for that string, so it will return null. Okay, so let's test this one. Okay, I'll go to my main activity, and then here I'll just create one instance for preference manager, new preference manager, and then we have to pass context. Okay, and then we'll pass some string set data, let's say my string, that is any string, and then we will lock the data. Okay, log dot e my demo preference manager dot get data. Let's run this application and let's check if it is working or not working. Okay, so I'll just open my logcat, so we'll get the logs. Until it is building, I'll just pause it. Okay, pause my recording. Okay, it's not needed, it is already done. You see here my demo preferences, and the string that we saved is the string printed in here. So this is how we use shared preferences. Okay, now our next task is to replace SQLite handler with preference manager. So we have to store our contacts in this place. Okay, so what we can do, we'll just create the array list that we are using in this main activity, that is array list contact. I'll just cut it and then paste it in here. So we will from now on we will use this contact array list instead of the array list in the main. Okay, and then we have this preference manager instance. Okay, so what we can do, we will just store this array list directly into our shared preference. So whenever any changes happens in this list, we will update that array list in actual database instead of taking every time the contact and then check and then saving it, like what we were doing in this SQLite handler. Like we have created many of the methods, that is add contact and update contact, get all contacts. Instead of that, we'll just have one method that will add update the shared preference. Okay, so whenever changes happen in this list, we will just update the shared preference. And and now we don't need any input because we are just using this contact array list. We'll change the name of this one. So function shift F6, and I'll just change the name to contacts and give the name to the contacts. Now we need string, not the array list, so we have to convert that array list into the string format. So how we do that? We have this option, that is we will use the one library, that is the JSON library, which is by Google. So I'll just show you how we do that. This is the link. I'll share this link with you guys. Just go to the github.com/google.json, or you just search JSON on the Google, and then like always we have to just copy the first thing, that is implementation, and add it to our Gradle file. Go to a Gradle and then add it in here and then sync it. Okay, so it's sync now, so we'll just go here and I'll show you what we can do. So we have to get the JSON. So this thing is to store the object to the string, and this thing is to retrieve that object back to the class. Okay, but this is the simplest form, that is JSON.toJSON, and then pass the object, any object. Okay, and then it will just convert that object into the JSON format. And JSON is just like a string, so you can store that string anywhere easily. And let's say if you have to transfer that JSON, that is string format, back to your object, then what you will do, JSON.from JSON, and then pass your string as a first parameter, and second one will be the class, that is my object dot class. Okay, so this is the easiest format. But what currently we have to do, we have to store the complete list of the objects into the string formatting, the database. So how we will do that? This is the thing, list to JSON array or string. Okay, you just have to copy until this one. I'll tell you what that code does. Okay, so our list will be array list, not the normal list, and it will be of contacts type. So I'll just change the name to the contact list. Okay, instead of this we just store it directly. We have already the instance here. We just have to import the JSON, import the JSON element, import the JSON array, and then just array list and contact type token, and that's it. We have passed contact array list as the first option, and then we have used this thing, that is new type token, and there we have added array list as a type token and dot get type. It will give the type to that class. Okay, this thing is pretty much provided by this library, JSON library. Okay, then we will check if element is a JSON array or not. If that element is not a JSON array, then let's say we will just log something there, the log dot e not in JSON array format. Okay, so editor dot put string contacts, and then we have to pass this JSON array there, JSON array dot to string. So this way we can store contacts in our shared preference. Okay, now what we have to do, whenever somebody create instance of this preference manager, we have to load all the stored contacts in this one. Okay, so for that we will just create one method, that is initialize contacts. Okay, we have to create this method now. This method will be public so that other classes can use it. So we will just remove this thing, that is get data. We don't need it anymore. I'll just copy this one. So we'll just get the contacts there. So I'll just create one variable to store contacts, JSON, and let's check if that thing is null or not. Contacts JSON not equals to null. If it is not equals to null, then we have to convert it back to the class. Okay, so when we have to convert something that is in the list format, that is we have stored something in the JSON array format to our shared preferences, we have to convert that JSON array back to our list, that is array list, so that we can do it by this line, just a single line. So we don't need this, we have already the field, that is contact array list. We need JSON instance, new JSON. Okay, we have to pass this contact list, contact JSON. Here list, we will replace it with the array list, and then video, we will replace that video with our contact class. So it's pretty simple, it will just initialize our contact array list. Okay, so now on we will use this contact array list instead of the array list in our main. Update shared preferences, whenever this contact array list will change, we will call this method, that is update shared preference, and then this method will update whatever changes happen in this contact array list into our database. Okay, so I'll show you how to do that. So here, so we have to remove this SQLite handler now because we don't need it anymore. Preference manager will remove this thing. Do we need a preference manager here? Okay, we will need it here. Whenever we will come back here, we have to reinitialize the preference manager. So what we will do, we will create one public static instance of the preference manager. Equals to new preference manager, and get, no, we cannot do that here, so I'll just do it in on create method. So preference manager equals to new preference manager, and we have to pass the context there. That's it, and it will initialize our array list down now. As this preference manager is static, we can access it from anywhere. Here we have to reinitialize the context because we will be here when our app will be resumed. So it may be from another activity where we may have changed some of the data that in that array list. So we need to update that array list using this method, that is initialize context. Okay, now we need to go back to our context adapter, and we need to remove this SQLite handler as we don't need it anymore. And instead of main activity, we will use this preference main activity dot preference manager that dot contact array list. Okay. The problem is that we don't need this thing static. Okay, so I'll just change it. Public static is not needed. We will just need it in public. Okay, so we need to access it directly, like from the object, not from the class as a static. So I'll just change it. Okay, so I'll just copy this, and wherever we have used it, I'll just replace it. Now what we are doing in here, we are removing the item from the list. So when we remove something or when we change anything in the list, we have to update that in our shared preference. So we need to call our method that is update shared preference. Great. And then when we have to update, we will send id. Instead of id, we will send now the position, as we don't need id and id is not there anymore, so we need the position. Okay, now I will just go back into our add contact class. Here we are getting the id. Here we need to change, like get intent is not proper thing. Get intent dot get data should not be null, and we will just remove this SQLite handler if we are using. Okay, so we just remove it so that we will know where we have to change it to the preference manager. So we need to get the contact. Okay, so we need to create one preference manager instance in here too. Preference manager equals to new preference manager, and we'll pass the context. Okay, we have the preference manager instance, reference manager dot contact array list, and then we have to get the contact that will be in our array list. So get from the position, that is id. Now in this class we were getting the list before, but now we are getting just a contact. So cancel. I'll just remove this contact list to the contact. So instead of is empty, we will check if that contact is not null. I'll remove this one, we don't need it anymore. Okay, so whenever user is updating it, so we'll just, what we'll do, we'll update it in our list. Okay, so we'll just add method where IDs are position and what we need to update is our contact. When we have to add something new, we'll just use our add method, reference manager contact array list dot add, and we'll pass contact. So this way we can add and change. So whenever we change something in our contact array list, we have to update that in our database. So we have to call this method, that is update shared preference. So that's it. It is very easy, and we have done it. Okay, so let's check if it is working or not working. So currently there is nothing in our shared preference. I'll just add one contact there, that is, let's say Shubham, and then I'll enter my phone number, enter email, enter alternate phone number. I will just add something 123 address, let's say Pune, Maharashtra, and then save it. You see, it is working properly. Okay, we can save the contact in our array list properly. So that's it for this session. You will try it yourself. If you have any problem, you can tell me. I'll solve your problem. Okay, thank you.